Hey, Ron, welcome.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
All right. So let's, Ron, we're actually recording right now. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for doing this. I haven't really officially started, so let's just do that. Hello, everybody.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. All right, Crystal, you're out. Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Hines for Encounters USA. We are your one-stop podcast and YouTube channel for all things alien, Bigfoot, and Dogman. So relax, kick up your feet, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Encounters USA. Now, I have got a fantastic show. I've got some great guests lined up, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time, talking, because the guests I have on the show are really going to be the show today. But what I would like to start off by saying is that we're going to be talking about, again, and if you watched the last podcast, I had a guest on that was probably about as woo as you can get. And we're going to kind of bring it back into, I want to say the scientific realm a little bit, but still we're going to stay on the woo. Now we have great guests. We have the fantastic Ron Moorhead. We have Dr. Simeon Hein. And we have our first timer, Crystal Panek. So let me just say hello to everybody. And I'm just going to go and say hello to everybody individual. So Crystal Panek, welcome to Encounters USA.
Thank you, Vic. Thanks for having me.
All right. And if you don't know Crystal Panek, she does a lot of Bigfoot investigations out in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Our next guest is Dr. Simeon Hein. He is the author of 2 books that I have listed up here, and we're going to be talking about his books because it's kind of the subject matter of what we're going to be talking about today. So, Simeon, welcome back to Encounters USA.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me here today.
All right. Now, we're going to have some exciting news from everybody in just a second, and we're going to catch up on what Simeon's up to, but let's go over to our elder statesman of Bigfoot, Mr. Ron Moorhead. I don't think Ron needs much of an introduction. He's about as famous as Burt Reynolds. So, Ron, welcome to Encounters USA.
Thank you, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yep. And you're looking handsome as ever.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. So let's go back to Crystal.
Two stories ever story.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's that, Ron?
No, it doesn't matter. I'm just jabbering.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what
I
we
said.
do
There's
here
2 sides to every
USA.
stories.
Okay. So the first thing that I want to point out is that Crystal has never met you. So,
I have not.
Crystal, would you like to say hello to Ron?
Hi, Ron. How are you? Nice to meet you. One of these days, I would like to finally get to meet you in person, but...
Oh, thank you. Good to see you. Good to meet you.
All you West Coasters.
Simeon.
Yep. And
yeah,
Simeon, have you ever met Ron?
No, hi, Ron. It's a great pleasure to meet you. You've done some very inspiring work.
Thank you.
And I appreciate everything you've done in this field so far. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment.
All right. So if you, I know you guys probably aren't really aware of what each other's background is, but I promise you're going to be by the time the podcast is over. So I want to start off by talking about Bigfoot, and it's going to be kind of a little bit, some people are going to say, oh, this is really out there. Now, I want to use an example which is why actually I ran into Crystal, is that Crystal and I were on a Facebook chat page, right? And these people, Crystal, can you explain a little bit about this? Because I don't know these people, but they seem to be very Bigfoot is a primate. We want solid evidence, etc. Is that what this Facebook page was all about?
I'm trying to remember which one because we met 3 years ago. So
we just ran into each other on, I can't even remember what it is. I can flash it on the screen when I do the editing, but there was a lot of talk about my podcast that, you have too much woo.
Oh,
right. So,
okay.
So Crystal, quite honestly, I brought you in here because I think you're more of the primate, that's what Bigfoot is, right?
Well, I try to keep an open mind because we really don't know what it is. I mean, I had an encounter when I was a child. So for me, what I witnessed was a physical being. So I can't say that, that they can teleport themselves and go through portals. Until we have some answers, I just can't say that. Unfortunately, Ron, I'm sorry. I haven't read your book yet. I would love to read your book. So I'm sorry, and I'm very fascinated by the recordings you got with Samurai Chatter. So, so it's hard for me to say one way or the other, but I'm very hard on evidence only because I'm seeking answers and definitive proof. And until we get that, it's hard, but like I said, I try to stay open. I don't want to put anybody down on their beliefs because we really don't have answers.
Okay. and Crystal, that's, I feel good about that because I wanted to bring you on the show for that particular reason. So you do your investigations out in New Hampshire, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you rely on Native American sources or European sources? Where's your information coming from?
Well, I do talk to a lot of people. I mean, I've been out with several Abenaki Indians, and one in particular, he took me out to his location, and his belief is that they can transform into animals. So we went out to his location, we did some gifting, and we did get some strange activity happening, nothing that you could see with your eyes, but, we found some tracks in the stream, and we, some wood snaps, and a stick went flying past us. So, things did happen, but I didn't see anything with my naked eyes. So, after he had told me about how they can change into animals, the very next day, I was letting my dog outside, and the biggest fox I have ever seen was standing in my backyard, just making direct eye contact with me and stared at me for a while, turned around and leaped over a boulder and jumped back into the woods. So that made me go, okay, that's interesting. So I called him back up that day, and I was like, you wouldn't believe what happened. So he just said, they're visiting you. But again, there's no proof, but it was just one of those things that make you go, So.
Okay. But it didn't make you go woo.
No, unfortunately.
All right. All right. You guys, before we get too far into this, you guys have had some exciting things happening. And so very quickly, I'd like to just stay with Crystal for a second, but Crystal, you've had some issues. Would you like to talk about that just so that people who are following you know what's going on with Crystal?
Yeah, I don't mention anything on Facebook. I've kept it pretty quiet. But about 3 years ago, a virus took my hearing on my left side, and I have constant vertigo, which has been going on now for 3 years. So I actually am going to see a specialist in Boston next week or the week after. So hopefully they can get the vertigo and the spinning under control. But, it's just one of those things. I just deal with it. I'll still go on expeditions. I still go out to witness sites. I'll still, it just takes me a little bit longer to get around, but that's what I've been doing. So I just kind of just suck it up and deal with it and live life and still do Bigfooting because it's my favorite thing to do.
Yep. And a fact is that Crystal and I met each other right. I know it's not funny, but we met each other right before you came down with this.
Yeah.
So be careful, Ron. Be careful, Simeon. All right. But Crystal, our prayers are with you. And
Thank you.
I keep telling you, I didn't know. Crystal and I met, I started doing this podcast. She's the first person that I ever actually interviewed. I don't even know if I posted that interview, Crystal. I remember it, but you're the first person I ever interviewed for this podcast. So anyway, other things happened and we lost track of each other. And now we found each other again through a hostile Facebook page. So that was,
unfortunately.
Yep. All right. Now I've got two other fantastic guests waiting and I don't want to keep them. So let's go over to Simeon. Simeon, you've got some exciting news. I think you're getting on a plane tomorrow.
No, I am driving. I'm in North Idaho at the moment at a remote location. I like to come out here and see what I can see. You and I went to the same school, WSU, and yeah, I actually got involved in this topic partly through you, Matt. It was really three things. I stopped at the Bailey Sasquatch Outpost. I'm a newcomer to this topic. I haven't experienced it directly. For those of you, other two, I have a PhD in sociology. I've been studying first remote viewing, then the experiences of UFO experiencers, that's black swan ghosts, crop circles, and the sort of strange electromagnetic anomalies, even around man-made ones. And then I did an interview with Matt about a year ago, and he mentioned Bigfoot and Dogmen, and I thought, oh, come on, I know I have a PhD, and I started doing research. I had just gone through the Bailey Sasquatch Outpost, and I realized around Boulder, Colorado, where I live, I couldn't believe it, Bigfoot sightings, tree structures, things that are indicative of this particular creature, and I was surprised that it was something so close to where I was living there. Then I did research on this area of Idaho, and I found from the BFRO.net site, there were sightings around here as recently as a couple of months ago, not very far away. I started doing reading, Tom Lyons, Rusty Wilson's books, just to see what the encounters are like. And then I listened to Ron's Sierra Sounds. And to put all these three together, Ron's Sierra Sounds were really, unimpeachable evidence that there was something out there. Other people have recorded these sounds in Ontario, same sort of sounds, decades later. So all three, these kind of things converged on me all at once. And I realized that this was something I hadn't studied enough. And it did fit within the subject matter that I was looking at, which is, how does quantum mechanics lead to these phenomena, essentially, what Ron has studied. And I ended up looking at Hugh Everett's ideas of many worlds leading to parallel realities and realizing that indeed parallel realities is the simplest interpretation of quantum mechanics. It isn't woo, Matt. That's actually what quantum mechanics says, is that they're all these states and we just perceive a tiny sliver at a time. Why? That's a big question, but that's how I got into it. And that's what I'm looking at right now.
That is fantastic. And I'm so glad I could have inspired you to go that route. And we're going to really be getting into the science of this, and we're going to be getting into the physics. I want to go over to Ron. Ron, I don't want to disclose any information I shouldn't, but you're working on a project, I think, yesterday. You got another movie coming out.
There's production companies quite often get these things going, and you never know how they're going to turn out. But yeah, I just came out of Alaska with a production company, and then I was with another one yesterday and the day before. So there's things going on. I think there's a lot of more people into this than some of us realize. It's becoming very, very popular. People are seeing these beings more and more, and they're trying to get answers. And so I think sometimes they're calling on me because they are looking into, I don't like to say woo, but I think quantum physics and the woo are synonymous. Because you get into quantum physics, you realize that's how the universe works. That's how that works. So
Right.
Yeah, there may be something coming out later this year. There should be, and then probably February of next year there'll be something else. So there's things happening. It's good because I want the awareness out there that at least give people their open-mindedness maybe to the fact that you just don't see in all frequencies. Anything is a frequency, energy, and vibration. And when you get into quantum physics, you realize at our most minute level of our existence, we are energy vibrating at a frequency. And we only see within certain parameters, and we only hear within certain parameters. We only smell within certain parameters. Everything's a frequency. And the frequency and how it works, you can understand maybe how some of this phenomena is being interpreted or trying to be interpreted. And that's what I do in my book, The Quantum Bigfoot, is I try to in the synonymous relationship, I think, with spirituality, because if you're religious, you'll think that, there's a heaven out there someplace. If you're a physicist, there's other dimensions that exist mathematically by physics. Because Newtonian physics, which we're all based on in our three-dimensional reality, is based on where we're at here on this linear time frame of the Earth. And that's really not how it is. If you get into other dimensions, the time as we perceive it don't exist. So it's hard to get your head around some of that stuff, but you have to conceive it. Newtonian physics based on material, everything being made physical, that's just not true. Everything in our dimension is. But when you get out of this, you can understand maybe that there's just more going on, and quantum physics is unpredictable, really. That's what it is. And it really has a lot to do with our consciousness, how it perceives things and how we make up our reality in a certain fashion. But Crystal, I'd love to get you a copy of my book. I'll send you one free.
Oh, thank you.
I think this will help. Well, I think this will help a lot because it tries to put some science behind it. When I first got encountered these things, and we brought in Al Berry, who was an investigative reporter, he was looking for a hoax in the Sierra Sounds and Sierra trip. But when you get back in there in the Sierra Nevada mountains, you realize that it's really going to be difficult for someone to pull this off. And he kept trying to find how this could be happening because it just isn't reported in other places. And pretty interesting account. In fact, if it hadn't have happened and he hadn't been involved, I probably wouldn't be with you today, just because he's just encouraged me to keep talking about it. At first, he said, "Don't talk about the strange things, otherwise you won't get to talk anywhere." So, because people can't get their head around the strange sounds and things that just don't add up. You can't pin it up. It's like trying to nail Jello to the wall, is what I say. So you get into quantum physics. It is a science. He had a master's degree in science. Al did. And anyway, I miss him. He passed away in 2012, but he was a good man, and he was a quite objective person. But he never could get a finger on how this was going on. He up there. Anyway, that's kind of been. I can just keep talking if you want me to, Matt.
No. Well, I want to.
It just goes on from there.
That when we talk about the expression "woo," you're the one who taught it to me. I hadn't heard it before I interviewed you, and then I was, oh, what does that mean? And then I interviewed this. I guess we'll start here. I interviewed this woman, my last interview, and it was really it was really out there. I don't do the channeling thing. Remote viewing is fine, but I really don't. I stay away from channeling and all that kind of stuff. But she wanted to talk about, I had her on the show because she said she had information about Bigfoot. And so okay, what's your information? And she said that Bigfoot, according to her channeling and her husband's channeling, they monitor the magnetic field around the Earth. And okay, they monitor, and I mean, I'm not telling her anything, but Ron, you and I have talked about, I think it was hoaxed, but at some point I saw a thing on YouTube. A guy said he had a magnetic Bigfoot hand. I don't know if you remember that, but later on everybody said, "Are you stupid?" I mean, that's obviously a hoax. But for me, that explained a lot. And when I talked to Simeon, he said, if they're magnetic, or I don't know what you said, Simeon, you can jump in here, but Simeon said, yeah, that kind of makes sense. That would allow them to do certain things. So any comment on that before I jump into something that's much more scientific?
Not really, but that makes some kind of sense, because if we're magnetic and energy and portals and all that stuff is around us, we just have to understand it a little bit. And so if they can transfer via vibrational frequency their matter into energy, the hand could, I don't know, I don't recall all things we talked about that day, but there's an answer for everything, Matthew. I think that everything has an answer, and you just have to look and see what the answer could be, and see if all the dots fit together with all the other. I've been reporting people. I've been doing this for 50 years now this year, and I've been interviewing people and talking to people all over the world, really. And when you see the things that I've seen, you realize that something with advanced intelligence has been on this planet, and probably here now. I got to tell you, it's because I believe in UFOs. I believe in aliens, because there's no question about it for me. I've seen the remains of them in South America, and I've seen anomalous, those things that just we can't do today with our technology. So if advanced technology has been here and aliens have messed with the genome of different species, that would create hybrid beings. They messed into a primate. Now, what we dealt with up in the Sierra Nevada mountains was a primate. It was flesh and blood. But what I say to people is there's more to everybody, and there's more to us than just flesh and blood. What gives us our consciousness? What gives us our telekinesis and different aspects that we have as humans? We just haven't learned how to evolve into them yet and learn how to use them. But we live in a three-dimensional environment, and there's a reason for that. We need to be here for the experiences we're having and treat them with love and respect. It's hard to do that. And Crystal, I empathize with you. I've lost my hearing in the left ear in a surgery I had about 4 years ago, and I don't to this day have balance. I can't walk in the woods like I used to. But I got to appreciate that, because I'm learning something from it. I have more compassion for people who have the same issue. It changes your life, and I've always had a really, really good life, and I still do. So you have to appreciate all the experiences you're having, because somehow in the past, your spirit and your entity, whatever you are, your consciousness has asked for that, so you can experience it, but you got to respond to it in a positive manner with love and compassion. I think that's what it's all about. And I get off track here real easy, Matthew, so just pull me back in when you want to. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I get to do this a lot now, and I just want the information that I have to be out there, and for people to try to open their minds up to realizing that there is a scientific explanation of how trackways disappear, or how these things can. Well, I hate to use the word cloak, because that's been hackneyed a little bit, but cloaking is when they transfer from energy, from mass into energy, and that's what you're seeing when you see the pixelation. I've had too many reports of people seeing just that to ignore them all when they're unrelated to each other. They just have that same line, that same narrative going on, and so you get kind of wrapped up, and you start trying to put the dots together in a big picture, and that's what I've done with my book. So I've tried to do, and I hope it brings some enlightenment and helps some people.
Okay, well, thank you, Ron. Before we jump into our next topic, and that is going to be 0 point energy, does anybody want to add to what Ron's had to say?
Yeah, Matt, I just what you were saying and what Ron is saying, it fits within what we know about cold fusion, low energy nuclear reaction. All of these types of processes affect electromagnetic wavelengths. And there's too many witnesses for all these various types of phenomena related and Bigfoot directly. I spoke to them at Bailey at the Bigfoot conference there a couple of weeks ago. Car battery stalling. Jim Myers said they were on a Sasquatch, trip to gather evidence. They had 3 truck batteries stalled at the same time where they had a sighting. Other witnesses described cell phones going out and things after the infrasound sort of experience. So this actually fits within science, and we know from the recent work that's being done now, it's been around for 100 years since Tesla. This is just what I said to you, just repeating it. it affects batteries and cameras. It affects electronic devices. And if Bigfoot can do this, it would suggest that they have this natural ability to do this that we don't know how to do without physical technology like we're using on this call right now. But that doesn't mean someone else hasn't figured it out and can use it. Cloaking is an inherent part of this micro ball lightning that you get in cold fusion LENR. So I just want to bring up that there is a scientific basis for this, and it's not inconceivable that another entity could use this that's been around. That I mean, it's already built into nature. It's quite sensible that some evolved creature tapped into it too. So yeah.
Great. Crystal, anything?
I just, my question, I'm a paranormal investigator as well. So I also do ghost hunting. I do drive around at night and look for lights in the sky. I've had experiences with strange objects in the sky. But there's a lot of things out there that are unexplained. So my question is why does everybody relate unexplained phenomena to Bigfoot?
Yeah, that's a great point. It really has to do with, I think it has to do with culture. If you, just like with, in the Bible, everything is angels, but with what we know now, maybe it was UFO activity. So let us not tarry. I want to jump into what I really brought you guys here for. And the thing is this, Mark McCandlish. Let's go back. When we're talking about quantum physics, who is I think we've got about 5 minutes. We're going to have to stop and take a break. But who knows what 0 point energy is? Yeah. I see one hand. Ron, Crystal. Simeon, I'm going to just take this very quickly because I know you're a scientist, and I'm just going to give you the layman's description of it. 0 point energy is if you froze the universe. There are still what Ron is talking about, what Simeon is talking about, at the subatomic level. The energy that holds things together, what Brian Greene talked about with string theory, those are still happening. The universe is absolutely frozen, but that activity is still going on. So, anybody familiar with this? Anybody want to stop me for a second?
Simeon can handle it.
Okay.
No, that's right, Matt. The universe, there's a background fluctuation in the quantum field. It's part of quantum mechanics. Out of nothing, you can get something because it's part of the Schrodinger equation, and it does happen. So even an empty space creates energy, and it's technically known in quantum mechanics as the Aharonov-Bohm effect, which is that even in a space with no magnetic energy, a particle can acquire a magnetic charge purely from empty space because it's part of the equations.
Okay. All right. So now we're gonna make another leap, and that is Mark McCandlish was a illustrator for Lockheed Martin. These a few, these like Boeing, etc. And he did illustrations in like Popular Mechanics and science magazines, and he found out about these UFOs, what he called alien reproduction vehicles. A friend of his said, "Oh yeah, I saw these things at a show they were shown to senators and senior military people." And then he started describing the physics of how they work. And very simply, what they do is they take that ambient energy that's in the universe. Paula Violette talks about it with the B-2 bomber. They basically strip electrons. With the B-2 bomber, they strip electrons, they reunite them at the tail end of the thing, and that gives them the ability to travel like to Iraq within a couple hours. But when you get into these alien reproduction vehicles and you're stripping electrons, the field that it creates, you don't experience time. You can move at, up and down. You're not subject to gravity, and you disappear from sight. So does any of this sound familiar to anybody? And my question is, because I'm just getting silence. Is there something? I mean, so with the 0 point energy, which is accepted, patents have been taken out. Actually, and I forgot to mention, Mark McCandlish was killed, I think, on May 21st, shotgun wound to the head. Another suicide, right? And at the same time, the government is coming out saying that, the UFOs are all alien. They're not ours. We don't have that technology. And that's a side story. But going back to the science, it's there. And, depending on who you believe and the patents that have been taken out, Tic Tac, UFO, et cetera.
Yeah.
They're really starting to sound like Bigfoot encounters. So any thoughts?
Yeah, which could lead us right into Crystal's question. Why is all paranormal stuff, or a lot of paranormal stuff, related to Bigfoot? Basically because Bigfoot people have witnessed paranormal stuff or something very unusual around these beings, and myself included, and that's what got me into what answers this. So the reason they relate it to paranormal is because they've experienced it. And trackways disappearing, well, that doesn't make sense. A helicopter picked this thing up. What happened to them? Things like that are reported quite regularly, and most researchers will just put them off as a hoax when they see something that doesn't fit in their paradigm. But we have to open up our paradigm and be able to receive new information. And I'm here today, and maybe I can receive some new information from you guys, because I'm always green to grow, and when you're ripe, you rot. That's what I say. When you're green, you grow. Anyway, I barged in there. Excuse me, Matthew.
Matt, no, that's what Ron is saying is correct. There's a more general way to refer to it, Matt. It's called coherent matter waves. Is that when you get things, just as Ron is saying, things that are at the same frequency, it's called monochromatic, that they would be at the same temperature and the electrons would be at the same frequency, will cohere into another state of matter. And it taps directly into the quantum field. The reason we don't talk about this more, Matt, is because it has been classified and it has been the subject of aerospace patents. Lockheed Martin has a patent exactly on this process that you can see online. Just look up Lockheed Martin patent for coherent matter. And they attempted to patent it. They mentioned the Aharonov-Bohm effect. So it's really interesting that our level of research, we work really hard. We talk to witnesses, we gather evidence, we look at ideas, and then we think, is this a little too woo or not? While it's actually being used and patented and developed, and as you mentioned, Matt, it could be in the Tic Tac technology. So it's almost like the amount of classification around this particular topic has led us to be behind where we could be in understanding it. In terms of Mark McCandlish, Matt, we don't know that he was killed. A lot of people are working in that area. He was on this frequent internet live stream with a channel called Alien Scientist Jeremy, who looks at these reverse engineered vehicles. And he was on there. I saw him just 6 weeks ago, I think. And they're all working in the same thing. It wouldn't make sense just to do that, but we really don't know. And it's really sad because Mark he had so much experience in this. He knew so much, and we'll really miss him being here.
Yeah. You guys, listen, we're going to take just a little bit of a break here, and we're going to come back and pick this up. We still need to talk about the evidence for and the evidence against a quantum Bigfoot. And I'd like to finish up talking about this topic about Mark McCandlish and 0 point energy. So we'll be right back. All right, you guys, I need to stop this because I got a 40-minute limit, and then I'm just going to send you the link to a new meeting and about 10, 15 more minutes. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. I'll end the meeting and I will send you the link. Don't go anywhere.
I may have to leave you in the middle of that because I have to take off about 10:30 or so. Okay.
Ron, why don't you just... let's just say goodbye to you before, and then you can just bugger off, as they say in jolly old England.
Well, you want me on the second half or not?
Yeah, I want you. You can just say, okay, well, thanks, everybody. I got to go.
Okay.
Okay? And then I can grill Simeon. All right. So I'm going to stop.
I feel like I'm so like beyond. You guys are like
but you're
at this level, and I'm like way
not
down here.
No,
no,
you're
Not
here
at all.
for a
You have
reason.
all the witnesses, the experience. It's all part. It's all matters. Yeah.
You're going to ground us, Crystal. Don't you worry. So I'm going to stop this. Hey, everybody. Speaking of quantum Bigfoot, how about making some quantum savings at encountersusa.com? That's right. Our gift shop has hoodies. We have t-shirts. We have tank tops. We have black. We have blue from me to you. And do not forget our bookstore with great books by Matthew Hines. All right, now back to the show. All right, everybody, we are back in action. I'm not sure we're going to get Ron back. He had a previous appointment, and I'm not so sure he'll be able to join us for the second half. What we're talking about in the second half is we're really looking for evidence of something that Bigfoot is not just a primate. And I really wanted Ron to argue the side. Basically, he was going to be the quantum guy. Crystal was going to be our primate person, and Simeon was going to be somewhere in between. But we don't have Ron, so I think I might just take his side of things and argue things from that side. So where we left off, we were talking about 0 point energy. We were talking about what Mark McCandlish found, and what he found was how these alien craft seem to be able to move around and do the things that they do. And then at least I have come to the conclusion, or I think it's very suspicious. These really sound like Bigfoot encounters. Bigfoot's there, Bigfoot's not there. Bigfoot, people are abducted, and then they never see them again. And Bigfoot is a suspect, same as the UFOs. So, again, there's more evidence to, if you want to argue that Bigfoot is more than just a primate. So with that, let's see. We left off with the field. I was talking about quantum physics, and I was talking about string theory. So, do you do anything with string theory, Simeon?
No, not directly. I'm coming at this more from a many worlds point of view, which was from Hugh Everett's 1957 thesis at Princeton about what quantum mechanics really tells us the way the world should look. The big mystery is, why doesn't it look like a big ghostly smear of every possibility, which is what quantum mechanics would describe every single particle and collection of particles to be? Why does it look so defined? And that was what he was looking at. So I've looked at it from that, and there's a newer interpretation called the many interacting worlds. These are models. We're not saying it's literally like this, but what we're trying to do, we're bringing evidence together with what science tells us should be true. As we get closer and closer together, we're bridging that gap between science and people's experience. And we want them to come together. We want to get out of this mode we've been in, which is to discredit witnesses, to ostracize and ridicule people that have any experience outside of the norm. Just really briefly, Matt, I first heard about the balls of light when people started experiencing them around remote viewing sessions, just in training. Occasionally, I thought, oh, come on. I mean, are they making it up? Then I went over to look at crop circles, same sort of thing, cameras and batteries failing. There's a great book you can see online called Strange Effects of UFOs by Gordon Lohr and Donald Kehoe, the famous researcher from NICAP from the 60s, where they document batteries and cameras and the strange physical effects of being around UFOs and some strange patterns in grain crops and things around it. This is documented. And then so when you put Bigfoot in together, it seems to be the same sort of phenomena. Batteries, cameras, medical effects, including healings, by the way. Mm-hmm. My mind puts it all together and says, what's the scientific principle behind it? That's just my bent as someone who's spent time in science. Can we simplify this and look at what's the fundamental principle? It could be string theory. It could be 0 point energy combination. These are interpretations. Matt, I just say string theory, 0 point. These are all interpretations of the same thing. It's just how do we mathematically describe it?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly right. Crystal, do you have a headache yet?
I'm going, okay.
Whatever you say. Yes. Well, just to simplify it is what there is an energy that's apparent in the universe that is there that Tesla knew about it, and he was trying to tap into it. And again, it is apparently being applied to how some of these UFOs travel. Now, this is not really a show about UFOs, so all I'm trying to do is to kind of compare the the similarities in Bigfoot and UFO sightings, and that's all I'm really trying to do. But now I want to go into a more kind of a more skeptical mode, and what I'd like to do here is kind of do a little bit of a debate, and I'd like to talk about what is the evidence, and this is where I wanted Ron here. What's the evidence for a quantum Bigfoot? And since Ron is not here, I'm going to say the first argument, we have never found Bigfoot. So does anybody want to refute that, Crystal?
I just think that honestly, the numbers are so low. It's such a rare, elusive creature that there's not thousands of them out there, like some people say. I just think it's a master of its domain. It knows how to hide. It knows how to, there's been times I herd of deer in the yard. They turn around and walk into the woods, and now I can't see them, but I know they're there. I just saw them. So I just think that they know how to stay hidden and keep away from people.
Okay. And if somebody says that, for example, I think Ron was talking about, I'm not going to go into this too far, but didn't he say there was a Bigfoot on a helicopter that disappeared? And I've seen stories and accounts of people that, or somebody had taken a shot at a Bigfoot and they just disappeared. And yet nobody has killed one. So anyway, it's very interesting. Simeon, what do you think?
So if you go through the literature and I go back through all the accounts I've heard through a couple decades, people claim to have killed them. We don't have any definitive evidence. There's stories here and there of them being captured and people seeing them. We don't have supporting evidence. So it's an unknown, and I guess it's a good question, Matt. Why don't we have an intact skeleton recently? We're told skeletons of giants from hundreds and thousands of, large people. Mm-hmm. The most recent account I read was in Nebraska, people that the Pawnee Indians claimed to have encountered a couple hundred years ago, who are 8.5 to 9 feet tall, who no longer exist. So it's a good question. Where's the evidence for where do they go when they, die?
Okay. Well, that's a whole other topic there. I've talked to Brian Forrester before, and his elongated skull people, I think, are not Bigfoot.
Right.
Right. The caves down in Utah, where they had those 8 and 9 foot, those don't sound like from the Native American accounts. Those don't sound like Bigfoot, but they sound like really weird, strange human beings. Apparently they were, I don't know, but the natives were able to kill them, and they didn't disappear or fly off in a spaceship. So, Crystal, do you think it's possible that there are different kinds of beings, and that maybe that is an explanation for why some are, the way they are, and then some maybe actually abduct people?
Yeah, actually, I do believe that there's so many different things out there that are unexplained that we just don't have answers to. I mean, some people see, leprechauns and little people and gnomes and balls of light. And I think there's a lot of different things out there that are unexplained. I'm not saying they don't exist. I just am, looking for the evidence to prove their existence. Mm-hmm. So I hate being so, I don't want to say skeptical, because I'm not. I mean, I'm a paranormal researcher, and I've had my own encounter, and I've seen this thing. So it's hard for me to say that, somebody's wrong. I will never say that. So I'm always open and I will listen to everybody, but I'm really, really, really tough on evidence because I need that for validation.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say to me? What would you say to me if I came to you with my, well, they're using the same technology that's in the flying saucers? What would you say?
You know, I would have to just listen to you and take your word because I don't have any proof to say you're wrong. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm going to try to be, supportive. I might think, okay, he's a little crazy, but no, no, I'll listen. And, just, we have no proof though. That's the only thing we're looking for. Exactly.
Simeon, anything?
Yeah, I would say, Matt, as a former statistics teacher at WSU in the sociology department, there's a bias in terms of what we consider to be evidence. The bias is that people that report experiences outside of the norm are generally discredited by mainstream thinkers and organizations. And we only have to go back to child abuse. It wasn't considered a real phenomenon until 1965, when there was a meeting held in Washington, D.C. with experts, radiologists and doctors and police officers, because everyone thought they were just falling out of trees or getting beaten up by bullies. No one could imagine that parents would do that to their kids. There are a lot of topics that are hard to talk about in any society, in probably any group of animals or beings. There are things that are difficult. It isn't only paranormal, what we call paranormal phenomena. It's anything that is just hard to accept, that's new. And it applied to child abuse. We know that, this disinformation campaigns can be created to keep it going in that direction, but eventually the truth comes out. And what Crystal's saying is true. We need evidence, but what is evidence? And I would say that witness testimony, when it's consistent, when there is a record, historical record to it, is a type of evidence. It's evidence comes from, in history, from courtrooms and from trials and from the jury system determining facts. Facts comes out of the British jury system. And we consider witness testimony as a type of evidence in a courtroom. We should consider it as a type of evidence here. And the evidence suggests, as you're saying, Matt, that people do experience aspects of Bigfoot that are completely flesh and blood. That's all they experience. But there's a small subset that experience it, based on my experience, a small subset that see something else, that see them transform into a tree stump while they're looking at them through a rifle scope, not too far away in the Blue Hills here in Washington, which is kind of a hot spot. People that see them transform into a boulder when people come by and then become a Bigfoot again. People that see them come out of balls of light, go into balls of light, and all range of experiences around areas where there are UFO sightings around at the same time. Now, that could be a smaller subset of all the experiences, maybe just 5%, but it's something we have to take seriously because it's a type of evidence. It's consistent. And as you're saying, Matt, it comes from people who've never actually talked to each other before. Why are they reporting the same thing decade after decade? Mm-hmm. And so my view, Crystal, it's not coming out of kind of this really high level of science. I'm not trying to intimidate you or anyone, but our ideas about quantum mechanics are changing. The multiverse idea is increasingly being accepted. And the idea, scientists at Oak Ridge National Labs are looking for evidence of parallel realities. Mm-hmm. In this case, one parallel reality. They're looking for one because of particle decay rates in particles, subatomic particles. It doesn't add up to what the models say. They're disappearing for too long. They're going somewhere else. So they're asking, are they going to a parallel reality? In other words, a reality right next to us here in the same space, but at, as Ron was saying, at a different frequency. So we're not experiencing. So it's really beautiful the way the science is moving in the direction of these phenomena. It's not totally there yet. And we certainly don't want to force anyone to believe anything that doesn't fit with what they've experienced. It's just that what is experience? What is the evidence? Because in my research, I'll just say this really quickly, just with UFO witnesses, in many cases, they had never told anybody else. They sat down with me to do a video interview. It's in Black Swan. Goes, they'd never shared this with very many people. So how many people are out there that have had experiences like this? And even with Bigfoot, when I started talking to people that I knew, they had these sightings, and I've recorded some of them in video that I haven't published yet. Close up, right, coming up to their house, the howls, the screams, the projections, and sort of things that are hard to describe into their mind a few minutes before it happened. So as a sociologist, I would have to say, is the data being underreported because of fear of being ostracized and ridiculed? I think we can assume it is being underreported.
I'll agree with that assessment. Definitely.
Yeah.
And, another thing that might go into underreporting is if you don't understand what you saw, if you don't understand, this thing just disappeared out of nowhere into nowhere, then you're not going to say that because, that goes from Bigfoot to being Bigfoot and crazy. So,
right.
But, unfortunately, Ron's not here, but one of the things that happened when he was up at that Sierra camp was the UFOs and the, coming down at the same time they're recording these sounds. So anyway, that would have been my evidence, that I would have liked to have heard Ron say. So do you guys, Crystal, is this something that you never heard of before and you'd like to look into it more, or is it just too far out there? I mean, UFOs using the same technology as Bigfoot to move in and out of our dimension, is that just too far out there for the, your, I want to say, skeptical researcher?
I know a lot of people who, like I said, are flesh and blooders, and it would be way out of their comfort zone. For myself, I'm fascinated by all aspects, and I'm going to research all aspects. So I am fascinated by it. Like I said, I have had several friends change, not sides, but are more open-minded to the possibility of different things that are out there. But it's funny, I've shared my encounter with people, and sometimes the first thing I hear is, holy crap, that doesn't sound like a Bigfoot encounter. That sounds like, you've had an alien abduction. So, I don't know. I try to stay open, and, I will research more, definitely. But, I would like to experience that myself. Mm-hmm. And then that would definitely validate, even if nobody else believes me, it would validate it for me.
I'll believe you.
Thank you. To have that encounter.
Oh, Ron's back. Holy cow. Hey, Ron, welcome back. We've jumped a little bit ahead of you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ron, listen, we had gotten into this topic of arguing for and against a quantum Bigfoot. And in your absence, I used the fact that in your Sierra Sounds tape, you guys were up there seeing UFOs and listening to Bigfoot, right?
I saw one UFO. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We're not sure about the other ones. It might have just been satellites. But this one big ball of blue light, huge, came down right close to us there, and we lost it behind the trees. So it was all happening during the Bigfoot encounters we was having. Plus the lights phenomena, just different things were going on up there that we didn't have an answer for. We underestimated what we're dealing with in those days. Just, we thought it was a dumb ape out in the woods that we had to get some more data on. But they're a little more clever than that. They seem to have a sapience about them. In fact, that's what our studies have shown with the Dr. Curlin's report, Professor Curlin's, the University of Wyoming, who studied them for a year and said they were outside the average human range. And then you got the cryptolinguist who also said that he studied them for a year also. I said they have a language by the definition of a language. And he's a two-time graduate of the School of Linguistics in Monterey, California. So he very qualified, both of them were. They're very professional, very academic, and yet you got science, conventional science, who just still don't want to grasp that. They can't believe an ape in the woods could exist, so therefore it can't exist. It's one of those, they just won't open their minds up to how everything in the universe actually works. And if they get into the subatomic level, then you'll realize that there's more going on. And so, we had this encounter. It was quite unique. How unique, I didn't realize until later in years when I started getting people question me about it, because I hear a lot of people say they've heard the same sounds, but they're not recording them so much. Like we were just fortunate enough to, sometimes the batteries would be dead up there, but we were able to record these. And I got to throw in something here. I don't think they're all the same genome. I think they can be different. And that's because I believe aliens, different types of aliens have been here, are probably here now. I think they're hybridizing different species on this planet to acclimate their species to this planet. We have the very jewel of the solar system here on this planet, and we need to appreciate it more, because it's a very unique planet, and I think they all want to be here. So there's a lot of information about that. People want to delve into it. But they're hybridizing, I believe, and they've hybridized some primates, and Bigfoot may be one of them. We may be one of them. Who knows? We could very well be. Something very unique gave us our cognizance, not cognizance, but our coherence,
Sentience.
I guess, whatever it is we got. We got things that other animals don't have, or maybe we just haven't learned how to evolve into what we really are as human beings. We're a very special race, I think, of people. And I was raised spiritually in a church environment, so I know scriptures. I don't go to church anymore. I don't believe in religion so much, but I believe in spirituality. Like it or not, we're spiritual beings. Our consciousness cannot die. It can only change forms according to physics. So we change forms. You talked about it earlier, Crystal, about some animal or some natives saying that they could change forms. Well, you got the Skinwalker Ranch. You've got all kinds of people saying that. I had something very unique happen to us up there once in my, it's a longer story. I don't have a lot of time right now. I got to take off here in a minute, but it's just energy can change forms. That's what it does. And if you can get the vibration right, you can heal, you can do everything. And just like Christ said 2,000 years ago, we can do what he's doing, but I haven't learned how to turn water into wine yet. I haven't learned how to walk on water. We got further to go to connect with this oneness that we all are part of. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important, because our consciousness is everything. I think that's how UFOs move so rapidly through space, and time don't exist like we perceive it, and they move through consciousness, and that's how our telepathy works. That's how remote viewing works. That's how things work, because you got to get out of this physical body and into what's really real. And what's really real is not this. This is just going to pass on someday, mm-hmm. and we will change into something else.
Ron, I know you don't have very much time. A couple things. You mentioned something about a helicopter. There was a Bigfoot in a helicopter that disappeared. Is that?
I think you misheard. That's what people want to say, because when trackways stop, they say, "Well, what? A helicopter pick them up?"
Okay. Okay.
However, I was fortunate to have a really nice helicopter ride here last month up in Alaska to a remote area. I had some really interesting times up there, which I can't talk about. But
I was going to ask you, where were you? Because
I would like to tell you all about it, but
okay, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, I got invited to a trip in the fall, so I am going, man, it's just going to be raining, and what good is that? What fun is that going to be? Anyway, all right. So Ron, the next thing is, what was my next question for you? Doggone it, I was going to ask you about the about you said something about. You saw Bigfoot in, like, I assume you're talking about Brian Forrester. In Peru, you saw like these taller beings. Are you saying that you thought those were like Bigfoot?
No.
Okay,
no,
good.
I was there and examining the elongated skulls.
Yeah.
A couple different times, 2 different years with 2 different scientists. And we went into the high country of Peru too, but we've seen a lot of stuff. But the elongated skulls that we were measuring and weighing all that, they have about 30% more brain matter in their skulls. And it's not cradle boarding like people say, well, the Incas did that. Well, yeah, the Incas did do that, but why did they do it? They did it we think, to emulate what these pre-Inca people were doing, the practice people, we call them. They had some abilities that moves those megalithic structures 13,000 foot up on a mountain, put together like a jigsaw puzzle with no mortar. And, we can't figure out the technology today, how they did that so uniquely. A lot of stuff in high country Peru is really interesting. The skulls, though, we found we're down in the lower country of Peru, below Lima, about 4 hours in Paracas. And that's where the museum was, where the grave diggers had sold these skulls to a museum owner. And they don't have a lot of accountability down there. These grave robbers, Huaquero, I don't know what they call it, I forgot the name for them, but went out with a couple of them. They started digging up bones. And you see this cemetery, it's just 7 miles, huge cemetery. You get up on this mountain, look at it, and it's just a bunch of holes and mounds and holes and mounds where they've been digging, trying to find something unique. Now, what's happened is the government has taken the royalty of the pre-Inca people and put them in a special place. So they got a guard there. We went there, and they wouldn't let us go any further because they protect those. I guess they realize we want to look at them, so they want to, who knows. But you can't get information out of the government of Peru very easily. Yeah. And we couldn't take DNA out of it. But Brian Forster is a kind of fostered that study of the DNA from that down there. And the Paracas skulls were shown to come out of Asia, Black Sea area. And that's unique how they could have got across the ocean at that time. But again, advanced intelligence.
Yeah. And I just wanted to clarify that the big skulls in Peru are not Bigfoot. And when you weren't with us, we were talking about what you mentioned is that, when we had asked, is some Bigfoot maybe just primates? Some Bigfoots maybe intelligent sentient beings that are associated with UFOs and technology. And you agree with that? Yeah,
I think some of them are just like primate. They've evolved and they've been here maybe longer than humans. Okay. Because something's given them a lot of abilities that we don't understand or we're trying to understand. And there's a whole movement saying they're just a relic hominid. Well, I don't think you can just say there's just one kind if you believe that aliens are existing. And I think we all do that, and believe that. So anyway, there's different types in my opinion. What we were dealing with up there, I know has a language and, that's been established professionally, and anything with a language, according to language by the human definition of language. Let me clarify that because it's very important. We have what we call sapient language. We can talk in sentences like this and convey our thoughts as we see them. Other animals don't have the vocal mechanism, which means a hyoid bone connected to the tongue, which gives the nervous system in and relates what we're seeing to conversation like we're doing now. These things that we dealt with in the Sierras have that because they can make sounds like we can make, but they can also go in and out. I have no doubt that they can mimic just about anything they want to mimic. We've had sounds up there that we could not understand where they came from. It wasn't a Bigfoot sound at the time. It was just like our camp was being tore apart one time, and we thought everything was being strung out. We look out there and nothing's changed. Well, how does that happen? Are they hearing into a parallel universe, or are they hypnotizing all of us? Because it's not like I'm the only one witnessing this, and it's just how does that happen? So we have those questions, a lot of them. I'm trying to answer a lot of the enigmas associated with these reports in my book, The Quantum Bigfoot.
Okay. Well, you guys, I don't want to keep you any longer. I know that Ron has things to do, and I'm sure Simeon heading off to Russia has things to do, and I'm sure Crystal has things to do. So before we finish, I just want to throw this back at you guys. I know it's a new thing to think about, but starting with Crystal, I'll leave you for last. Starting with Simeon, do you think that, am I just way off base here? This Mark McCandlish, they're using the 0 point energy to propel these UFOs. Do you think I'm way off base for trying to associate this with how a Bigfoot seems to interact?
Well, no, I don't think you're off base, but I think as Crystal's saying, we have to go based on evidence and what people are experiencing. We don't just want to just sort of loosely connect things because they seem related, but it's because there's evidence that it's actually the same effect. And Matt, it very well could be a similar sort of process. Really is nothing new under the sun. It's just that science feels like it discovers new things. Whatever science discovers was already somewhere in nature And it's
Very
quite
good.
possible, as I said in the beginning, that there's biological organisms around that learned how to harness things that we don't know how to do as people, and we call it quantum. We think of it as high tech, but that it's actually simpler. 0 point is simpler than what we're doing is manifesting in all these different forms. It's the fundamental form of the universe. So that other entities, animals, people, humans could be part of that. Plants use quantum principles too. Every plant you see around you is using quantum principles to transform light into the right frequency of energy. It actually suspends particles of light, photons, in superpositions.
Wow.
That's very good.
So we have to rearrange our idea that somehow we're at the pinnacle of everything science that discoverers think. We might have forgotten a lot, Matt. So it isn't out of line that this is connected to the same principle, but it's only because that's one of the fundamental principles of how our universe works. And we might not know how it works. It doesn't mean that other beings and other entities and biological entities right here could be still using it.
Okay, Ron, I'm going to jump over to you, but I'm going to throw this at you in a different way. We're talking about these big skulls. Bigfoot has big skulls. These giants in Peru had big skulls, obviously much more intelligent than human beings. Do you think that having, and this is from talking to Brian Forrester, do you think that having a larger skull, a larger brain would give you more capacities to interact in different ways, like telepathically, electromagnetically? Do you think that would be possible?
Well, I don't know. It's likely. The bigger brain, we got bigger brains than a lot of animals, and we're smarter, right?
Well,
I was down there seeing if the sagittal crest or this elongated skulls could have anything to do with the sagittal crest. Has been reported on Bigfoot so much up here. There's a crumb trail going up into Central America with the Aztecs and the Mayans, and then there's a crumb trail they warred with giants in the north, which took me to the Paiute legend of the Lovelock Caves. I've been there 4 times just studying, and I also got the report from Dr. Denton, who seen the Minred skull in the Sierra Nevada mountains and took it to UCLA, and it disappeared. And you got the Martindale mummies found in Yosemite in 1898. There's a lot of information out there that is available for people if they just start checking it out, and don't put everybody off in the woo just because they don't agree with your paradigm. I don't. I try to listen to everybody, and if it fits in the picture, if you get enough of them, it draws a line across there, and you can see what it's trying to say. I really have to chime out now because I got to be somewhere in about 10 minutes.
And we're going to have to chime out too. So, Ron, you go ahead and you can click off, and we'll see you later. I got to say goodbye to everybody, but
Thank you, Ron.
Those answers.
Thank you, Crystal. Good to meet you, and
nice meeting you.
Simeon.
Yep.
And I hope to see you someday. And I appreciate you, Matthew, for having me on.
Well, thanks, Ron, and I'll send you the link to the video when I get it up. Thanks again for doing it. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you on my show every time. So great.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Well, take care, Ron. Bye. All right, Crystal, you got about 3 minutes. So what have your opinion changed about Bigfoot today during our show?
Like I said, I try to stay open-minded. It's hard for me to, say one way or the other. So I can't say that I've changed sides, but, I'm still open-minded and I will listen to people regardless. I mean, like I said, there's so many different things out there and there's, we just don't have all the answers. So I just, that's about it. I'm looking for answers and proof and something tangible that I can get my hands on.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, could I just say one thing?
Yes, Simeon.
I got to meet the Russian researcher, Dr. Igor Bortsev, at the Bailey conference a couple of weeks ago. It was a real treat because this was someone from another country, and he's been studying Bigfoot for 50 years. And if there's ever a hands-on, evidence-based, nuts and bolts researcher, it's Dr. Igor Bortsev, who just started thinking it was Bigfoot could be a primate, undiscovered primate, an undiscovered type of human, or perhaps another type of Neanderthal. And he was doing, based on anthropology for years, but he told us he changed over decades based on his experiences and talking to people because of the phenomena surrounded by people's experiences. He described a woman that said the Bigfoot literally became invisible right in front of her. He showed her picture in her garden, like a curtain coming down.
I've had talked to people too. I've talked to witnesses who have described it the same exact way.
Wow.
Okay, so that's evidence. Just vanished.
That is a great starting point, guys. I'm glad we can end on this. This is where someone from Russia, and here you've talked to people, Crystal, where they just, the curtain comes. What is that? I know I can't do that, Matt. I mean, I don't think you can do that, Matt, either, but this creature seems to be able to do that. And Igor also described, I'll just end on this. It's on his Facebook page. You can friend him on Facebook, of being in a van when they were at this outpost, I believe in the Caucasus Mountains, or one of these places where they were doing an investigation. And the car started on its own.
Wow.
Without a battery attached at the time. And then objects started moving around inside the van, flying from here to there, like PK. So when I talked to him personally, I will just share what I went after the talk, and I talked to him. He said, it's quite likely this is some sort of paranormal creature too. It has abilities that we don't have anymore. We forgot, something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And that is the best way to end the show right there, because I think it really emphasizes the fact that, we've always had the question of, does it exist? But now there's another question of how does it exist, and how does it get around, et cetera. So very quickly, I just want to go over, I'm looking for our books here. And Simeon, Dr. Hein, is the author of Black Swan Ghosts and Opening Minds. And Ron Moorhead is the author of Voices in the Wilderness and, of course, The Quantum Bigfoot. And I'll have links to all these in the description on YouTube. So I'd like to thank all of my guests for being on the show.
Thanks.
Thank you, Simeon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Nice to meet you, Crystal.
Nice meeting you too.
And Crystal, I love your background. I love your necklace.
Oh, thank you.
And you are looking lovely. So
great setup there. Yep.
Thank you.
In absentia, I want to say thank you to Ron Moorhead for doing the show. So for everybody out there, if you're with Simeon in Colorado, or if you're with Crystal Panek up in New Hampshire, always watch your back. Matthew Hines here. Just want to remind you, if you like this kind of content, subscribe to this channel, whether you're listening on podcast or watching on YouTube. Also, go to encountersusa.com for more videos and podcasts, all archived for your convenience. Also, we have a wonderful Encounters USA blog, as well as an Encounters USA paranormal shop for all of your paranormal apparel. So, not only can you watch your back, you can put some of our designs on yours as well. So we'll see you on down the road on Encounters USA. Hey, Crystal.
Okay,
So we're going to kick Ron off and let him go do his thing, and then I'll let you guys have it. So I'm recording now, Crystal. You don't need to remind me, but I know you're thinking, should I remind? Look at
record.
You. I can't read. There's nothing on it.
It is. Just can't see it.
Oh, good. Wow. That helps a lot. Well, let's just get going. So, let's give him a couple seconds. Yeah, Crystal. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a thing where what's the evidence for, what's the evidence against, and you're going to give us the evidence against a, quantum alien type Bigfoot. What you've
It's
seen.
hard because I try, I'm open-minded. I have a lot of friends who did, change from strictly flesh and blood to, well, there's possible other, explanations. So like I said, I try to stay open because I've had so many weird and unusual things happen to me myself. So it's hard to say. I can't say. I'm seeking evidence. That's that's my point.
Yeah, that's a good way to be.
I don't know if we're going to get Ron back. So let's just start.